from the headquarters of Telesur English in Caracas, Venezuela. I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is from the South. A 6.6 magnitude earthquake hit Ecuador just after 9 p.m. local time. According to preliminary information, the epicenter of the earthquake was located nearly 10 kilometers from Cumandá in the province of Chimborazo. The quake was also felt in the capital Quito, in the coastal port of Guayaquil, and other cities. There are reports of some damages in central provinces. Other earthquakes hit the area with just minutes of difference, one of 5.9 magnitude in Panama and another of 5.8 in Chile. Still in Ecuador, just one day after 92 Venezuelan migrants flew home, another 100 Venezuelans have registered for the return to the homeland plan. The Venezuelan authorities say the government is planning to send another flight to Ecuador as part of this program. Until the Venezuelan government confirms the dates of the flight, the embassies continue to analyze the individual cases.
I want to congratulate this government plan promoted by President Nicolás Maduro, because many of the Venezuelans that are still here don't have money to go back. I think this is a great motivation for us, to know that open doors will be open to welcome us back.
I thank President Nicolás Maduro from the bottom of my heart for having implemented this plan. I'm not sorry for saying this. I am Chavista, and I'm going back to my country with pride.
The first group of 92 Venezuelan migrants who asked to be repatriated from Ecuador landed in Caracas early Thursday morning. They returned in a government charter plane, and their families were eagerly awaiting at the Simón Bolívar International Airport. The migrants shared some of the hardships they faced after migrating and talked of their hopes of a new start back at home.
In Ecuador, they're afraid of us. You could just tell. We were pushed to the side. Finding work was very difficult. And when we did, we were exploited. We were paid much less than the minimum wage. I couldn't stay there. I wanted to come back home.
A U.S. Navy plane has arrived in Ecuador as part of the bilateral security agreement signed between Ecuador and the United States. Many analysts are questioning this deal and are concerned about Ecuador's future.
Ecuador's Defense Minister Osvaldo Jarrín and Interior Minister Maria Paula Romo welcomed the United States Navy plane in Guayaquil. The U.S. Navy flyovers are part of the military cooperation agreed between the two countries.
The P-3 Orion airplane allows us to strengthen our monitoring, surveillance, and detection operations, not only for transnational crimes, like drug trafficking, but different types of transnational crimes.
For some security experts, the current government's proximity to the U.S. government and its military institutions has raised concern. According to the analysts, the U.S. Navy flyovers over Ecuador's airspace violates the country's sovereignty and territorial integrity.
This airplane has the capacity to carry missiles, bombs, etc. So this is not just an intelligence airplane. That's what our main concern is. The government said it was going to be only for intelligence and data collection purpose. So why is it equipped to carry bombs and fully capable of striking?
After several violent attacks on the northern border of Ecuador, the government decided to sign a military cooperation deal with the U.S. The government also decided to invite the U.S. Office of Security Cooperation.
We must ask ourselves what Ecuador's role will be in the policy the U.S. is developing towards Venezuela and its government. I think a policy is being consolidated in the Andean region, and Colombia's role is very important due to its long tradition of military intervention in regional politics, especially now that Duque is leading the country.
After the arrival of the U.S. Navy plane, Several analysts and security experts have decided to form an organization that will closely analyze the bilateral agreement. Meanwhile, opposition and social organizations have called for a protest on 13th of September in Quito to condemn the latest economic measures and foreign policies implemented by President Lenin Moreno. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Quito, Ecuador.
Nicaraguans have condemned the United States for calling the country a regional threat. The U.S. made the comment at the United Nations Security Council meeting to discuss the civil unrest in the country. The Nicaraguan government has strongly rejected the comment and also ordered the expulsion of the United Nations Human Rights Delegation from the country. Thousands of Nicaraguans marched in the capital of Managua to show their support for President Daniel Ortega.
Le decimos a los gobernantes norteamericanos.
We say to the U.S. government, we say to the U.S. congressmen, we say to them that if they want to contribute to the peace in Nicaragua, they must respect Nicaragua as a sovereign nation. The best thing they can do and should do is to not mess with Nicaragua, to respect Nicaragua.
And Cuba's Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs also reacted to the comments.
As the first act of its September presidential period ahead of the Security Council, the United States imposed the inclusion of a topic regarding Nicaragua. They manipulated the proceedings and violated the UN's agreements in order to do this. With disrespectful and interventionist statements, the permanent representative of the United States made a call to take actions against Nicaragua and to maintain the dirty war policy against Venezuela, also violating every international rule while it insulted Nicaraguan President Daniel Ortega.
La política de guerra sucia contra Venezuela.
The UN Security Council, Russia and China on Wednesday demanded that the U.S. respects the sovereignty of Nicaragua. They stated that the country is not a threat to international peace and that therefore the issue of Nicaragua should not be submitted to a discussion of any kind. They demanded respect for the nation's self-determination. Bolivian President Evo Morales also took to Twitter to welcome the push from Russia and China against the United States. He added that U.S. President Donald Trump should lift the economic blockade against the country. Now to news from Brazil, where right-wing presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro has been stabbed. It happened during a crowded campaign rally in Juiz de Fora in Minas Gerais. The wound was superficial and he's recovering in the hospital. The attacker has been detained by the police. And Brazil's Supreme Court has rejected the latest appeal by the legal team of former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva. This essentially means that Lula is out of the presidential race. Our correspondent in Sao Paulo, Ignacio Lemus, has more.
People in Brazil are still reeling from the surprise decision by Supreme Federal Court Justice Edson Fachin to turn down the appeal of Lula's defense team. Lula's lawyers had asked that the court adhere to a recent UN resolution saying the jailed former president should be allowed to participate in the presidential race. Fachin's stance is particularly surprising since last Friday he warned the Supreme Electoral Court that the UN's resolution should be taken into account. But he has now obviously gone back on his words. This decision by Judge Fachin and the recent verdict from the Supreme Electoral Court, which said Lula is ineligible to participate in the elections, leaves the left-wing leader completely out of the presidential race. These decisions have come despite popular support for Lula and the fact that he still leads in all polls by a wide margin. Social movements are planning various mobilizations in support of the former president and to reject these decisions.
That was Ignacio Lemus from Sao Paulo. Coming up, more stories. We'll be back.
Trump's Gestapo is at it again. Trump's goons are denying more and more passports to U.S. citizens with Mexican heritage, arresting them for supposedly questionable paperwork, and even canceling passports of Mexican Americans currently living outside the country, leaving them stranded abroad. Trump keeps inciting racism and continues to paint the U.S. as a society of white people, erasing the legacy of immigrants who made the country more culturally diverse. I mean, does he think taco bowls just fall from the sky? In June, he set up a denaturalization task force to strip citizenship for people his administration deemed suspect, questioning their applications, digging up all misdemeanors and convictions in order to claim they lied and never disclosed them. They don't even care if you lived in the U.S. for decades. And there's the Democrats. Last week, they expedited votes on lifetime appointments for 11 of Trump's federal judge nominees, just so they could get back to their districts to campaign for the midterm elections and be home with their families. Folks, it's imperative to organize against Trump's policies, but also this November to vote out any politician who's not willing to lay down their career for immigrants' rights.
Welcome back. Now to news from Brazil, where right-wing presidential candidate Jair Bolsonaro was stabbed on Thursday. It happened during a crowded campaign rally in Juiz de Fora, Minas Gerais. The wound was superficial and he's recovering in the hospital. The attacker has been detained by the police. The International Monetary Fund has said that it plans to wrap up talks to strengthen the $50 billion financing deal with Argentina as rapidly as possible. The announcement came Thursday as the country's peso and stocks climbed for a second straight day. Late on Wednesday, Economy Minister Nicolás Duhovny said he had enormous confidence that Argentina would be able to reach an agreement with the IMF on early disbursements. This was approved in June before the peso suffered a sharp fall in the first week of September. In Costa Rica, the weight of corruption is reflected in the fiscal deficit that the country is facing. Let's see why.
With a fiscal deficit of more than 7% per year, the Costa Rican government is promoting a controversial new law in the Legislative Assembly and is promoting an increase in taxes.
We all would like to earn more money, but we must face our reality. Without adjustment, the situation will get worse.
All of the executive administrations of the past decades were involved in corruption scandals, including Caja Fiscal, Ice Alcatel, La Trocha Cruzitas, political campaigns, and China's cement. Corruption is also one of the reasons for the reduction in public funds.
I
believe that the Costa Rican former president's corruption cases had a great effect on us. It removed the blindfold from our eyes.
According to an expert in international transparency, sanctions are one of the main problems in the fight against corruption.
Effective sanctions are one of our main weaknesses. Many of these cases end with judicial dismissals because they are very difficult to corroborate.
In the last decade, more relevant accusations have reached the court, and for those that do, typically don't face sanctions.
The district attorney's office could not have had enough clues at the moment to prove them guilty.
The cost of corruption doesn't only have monetary consequences. It can also affect public trust in institutions.
Every time there's a corruption case, the trust and credibility in the public institutions decreases. Citizens still feel resentful regarding corruption cases.
Con respecto a casos que pudieron haber sido vinculados a temas de corrupción.
Citizens from Central America have a medium to high perception of corruption, according to international transparency reports. Corruption has involved not only the prominent former president's case, but also private companies and citizens themselves.
The dispute between the Guyana Teachers Union and the government will go to arbitration. The union had said they were willing to accept a 15% wage increase, down from the original 40% that they requested. But after a 2-hour meeting at the Department of Labor, it was decided that the dispute will go into arbitration. This means that the teachers will return to classrooms in full on Monday. The meeting between the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago and the unions has concluded, but no agreement has been reached. The strike was called for Friday to protest the closure of the Petrotrin refinery. The government says it hopes that good sense will prevail. Among the decisions coming out of that meeting is that a date has been decided for the decommissioning of the refinery. It will cease operations in December. The union leader says they went into the meeting with the hopes of holding honest discussions, but their plans were not taken into consideration.
We have reiterated the point on more than one occasion that the refinery is a loss-making entity, and what the analysis has shown is that where we should be heading is in ensuring that exploration and production is the area in which we will find the best solution for dealing with what is taking place at Petrotrin at this time.
The president of the Oilfields Workers Trade Union, Angel Roget, also reacted to the outcome of the meeting. He expressed his disapproval of the closure of the refinery.
If devastation comes, God forbid, as a result of some tragedy of that nature, it is the workers who will have to pick up the pieces. And those workers throughout the country, not just Petrotrin workers, those workers who bring revenue based on what they do, those workers ought to be treated with a level of respect. While you talk about respect, we don't see it.
We'll take one last short break, but you can stay with us. And in the meantime, you can watch this video coming up. Welcome back. Russian military exercises have been taking place in the Mediterranean Sea. More than 50 combat exercises as well as 50 flights were held within the framework of Navy and aerospace joint exercises. Russia's defense ministry highlighted that the drills are organized to check the technical characteristics of warships and to demonstrate the ability of their crews to fulfill missions in any region on a planet. It is the first time in Russia's recent history that it performs joint military maneuvers of both Navy and aerospace forces in the Mediterranean.
It is essential to bear in mind that the management of cooperation between the Russian Navy's certain fleets and command units of the aerospace forces are being tested during the drills. In the exercise process, cooperation between tactical groups is being mastered, as well as between certain vessels on specific tasks.
A rebel group in Yemen has refused to attend the United Nations-led peace talks in Geneva. The Houthi rebel delegation said it won't attend the peace talks on Yemen until the UN complies with their 3 conditions. Their demands are to transport wounded rebels to Oman and also take them back home after receiving treatment. And finally, guarantee their delegation can safely return to Sana'a, the capital held by them after the talks. And Yemen's foreign minister told reporters that as a result, the government delegation will now have to decide on whether to withdraw from the talks. Martin Griffiths, the UN Special Envoy for Yemen, has called for the Houthi delegation to attend the talks, which they say are aimed at relaunching peace negotiations after 3 years. And families in Yemen have been gathering at a new cemetery built to hold the remains of the children that were killed in a recent Saudi-led airstrike. The strike on a school bus in Dahian killed 40 children. It targeted the Houthi stronghold. The wreckage of the bus has now become a playground for the kids in the area. Close to it is the cemetery in Sada, where the graves of the children buried there. Iran's Hourglass Art Festival held its closing ceremony on Thursday, which, according to exhibitors, was said to focus on the countdown until the annihilation of Israel, as the exhibition is titled. The exhibition featured around 3,000 artworks submitted from 71 countries, united by a common message that spoke against the state of Israel. An Iranian representative of Hezbollah, Abdullah Safinideh, took to the stage before the winners of the exhibit and contest were announced. In Japan, at least 4 people have been killed and 33 are missing following the earthquake which hit Hokkaido on Wednesday. The quake was followed by mudslides. Cars were stranded on muddy roads, and the island lost all its power, triggering the shutdown of all power plants using fossil fuels. And now electricity is returning slowly.
The latest reports I received on the casualties of the magnitude 7 earthquake, which had its epicenter in the central eastern part of Iburi region in Hokkaido, say 7 people were dead and others still missing, mainly in Atsuma town.
The island of Fiji was also struck by an 8.1 magnitude earthquake on Friday morning. No tsunami alerts have been issued. According to the National Weather Service in Hawaii, the tremor occurred too deep within the earth to trigger a tsunami. India's top court has scrapped a colonial-era ban on gay sex in a landmark ruling. It's being considered as a breakthrough in a socially conservative country where homosexuality has been a taboo. Gay sex had been punishable with a sentence of up to 10 years. Activists and the LGBTI community celebrated the news and hope that India continues to work towards equality. A third summit between the leaders of North and South Korea will take place on September 18th in Pyongyang. Isaura Diaz has the details.
This news is causing a large impact. Next September 18th, South Korean President Moon Jae will travel to Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, to hold his third face-to-face meeting with the leader of that nation, Kim Jong-un. According to Moon Jae-in's special envoy, who visited Pyongyang for one day, the South and the North have agreed to hold high-level meetings beginning next week in order to finalize the details for this important meeting, which will start on September 18th and end on the 20th. According to the special envoy, both leaders will discuss the implementation of the Panmunjom Declaration signed by the two presidents on April 27th. They will also discuss how to develop bilateral relations and promote peace and prosperity on the peninsula, as well as the denuclearization process. The special envoy met Kim Jong-un, who once again expressed his commitment to the process of denuclearization and also to the talks on the issue with both South Korea and the United States. The two countries agreed to soon open a joint liaison office, which will be located in the area of Kaseong near the border with the two countries, but on the North Korean side. Apparently, they also agreed to talk at the next meeting about a specific time frame for an official declaration of the end of the Korean War of 1950 to 1953. This, of course, is one of the most important measures requested by Pyongyang to continue advancing on the other issues with South Korea and the United States. Technically, the two nations continue to be at war. At the end of the conflict in 1953, an armistice was signed. However, Washington has been reluctant to declare an official end to the war until North Korea takes what it considers specific measures towards denuclearization in the peninsula.
That was our correspondent, Isaura Diaz. And Pyongyang is also preparing for celebrations for the 70th anniversary of the founding of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea. The mass games will be an art form which involve tens of thousands of performers who participate in massive, synchronized displays of art, dance, and gymnastics, much like the opening ceremony of the Olympics. The DPRK's military parade and other high-profile events will also be featured beginning on Sunday. And with that, we come to the end of this news brief. But this and many other stories you can find on our website at telesurtv.net/English. Here you can find our latest news, our videos, opinion, also divided by country. And you can also join us on social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.